everybody start the fucking podcast.
Oh, it is.
And they all name it fucking something.
It's always something different. And what do people start podcasts about?
Movies.
People talk about movies.
Because they think their opinions mean something. And with that, welcome to the Sure Points podcast. I guess I'm the host of sorts, even though Scott's sitting in
just
the
make
middle.
yourself the host. It's cool.
Yeah,
Go ahead. No, go
yeah,
ahead.
fuck you. I'm in charge now.
No problem.
Yeah, but I'm Dan Woolley.
I am Scott.
I am the soft-spoken teddy bear, Steve.
Ooh.
God damn it, we're doing this again. Say your last names, you monsters. Stop making me feel left out.
I figured, some anonymity, added to the...
What skeletons do you have in your closet?
Who's that guy?
No, you have skeletons in your closet. You don't want people to trace the name when we get famous.
Don't worry about it.
That man's name is Scott Schroff.
Don't worry about
it. That man's name is Steve Rusin.
How do you spell it?
Rusin, yeah.
Sure.
No.
You sounded like you were saying a cheer. Like, Rusin. Anyway.
Deep down, I cheer Steve on. He's a good man.
In life, you picture him
every time I see Steve doing good, I'm happy for him.
I hope you
I
are.
would hope
We're all friends. I hope that's everything.
I wish for nothing more than his imminent
failure.
failure.
Every time you tell me good news, I die inside.
Sometimes when I'm feeling pretty low, I think that.
Transition.
Okay. So we are the Short Points podcast. Formerly,
we're not necessarily the Short Points podcast. Short Points is the name of our channel, or the name of our idea.
It's the umbrella that we operate.
It's the umbrella. Yeah, is our
umbrella.
Our umbrella. Our that's our name. We'll go with Short Points. This is the podcast from Short Points,
and this is the subsection of Short Points, and this is called Cinema Obscura. I forget we have a camera now.
You can
I gotta look at you, fine folks in the audience.
We can, you
people
gotta
of the
exchange
world.
glances with each other.
I'm just gonna look into
7-Eleven
Steve's sorrowful
eyes.
eyes the entire night.
I'm comfortable just staring at you guys. The camera doesn't need to look at me.
Okay, all right.
I don't need to look at the camera.
He just fucking starts getting naked. Just keep taking my eyes.
YouTube has a policy. And we cannot go against that.
Then we're not going with YouTube.
Where are we going to
We'll make our own social media.
We're going to go with Peacock.
Are we doing Donald Trump style?
That's what I'm saying.
Okay. All right. So let's describe what this podcast is, since this is going to be our first video.
Give me whatever the fuck we want. No, I'm kidding. We're going to talk about life, mostly movies, bit more about life. Because that's what the best podcasts do. You're getting a slice of life of 3 working-class gentlemen from New Jersey. Something you could get literally anywhere, but you're getting it here.
Yeah, and the theme that we're going to mostly be following is just underrated, underlooked.
Oh, well, we could talk about that specifically.
Yeah, all right. So that's what I was trying to...
So the idea behind Cinema Obscura, which is the name of this...
podcast, yeah. If we
want
to make
this
another...
endeavor.
Yeah.
But, we look back in time, and... Every year, every decade or so, there's always talk about what were the best movies, what were the worst movies. We have award shows for both ends of that spectrum, the best and the worst.
Yeah, I got the Oscars and the Razzies.
But how many times have you been watching a movie on TV, or you see it on Netflix, or somebody's telling you about it, and you're like, I don't remember this coming out. And you look at it, it's like 2018, you're like, I don't remember this coming out.
When did this... And sometimes it'll even have a star in it. And you're like,
exactly.
What is this?
And so I decided... Well, we decided. Let me not act like I'm the big business here.
Me and Steve got 2 words in the entire time.
No, but we have decided that is what we're going to review. Because I feel like there's been quite enough podcasts and YouTube channels breaking down the deeper meaning of Fight Club.
And just picking crap movies as well.
Yeah, because... yeah.
So there's enough saturation on both ends of the spectrum, right? We want to be in the middle.
We're finding new ground in the middle. I don't think that's ever been said before.
Finding new ground in the middle. It's probably been said by some... You know what? I'm not even going to get into it. That's going to bring it into a whole different realm. And
are we getting political?
That's what we're gonna avoid the politics. So
no, let's talk
Russia,
about
Ukraine.
Now we're just getting to the meat of what we're talking about.
Transition Siberia. That's what our movie
All
is
right,
this week.
we'll jump right into Siberia.
Yeah, so I guess I'll introduce Siberia since it was my choice this week. So really not much of I just noticed when I was going through a bunch, I don't even remember genuinely how I found it. I was just looking through a bunch of movies, trying to see, okay, well, what looks interesting? And after just watching No Way Home, I'm like, oh, I love Willem Dafoe. Willem Dafoe can do no wrong. So I see him on a poster. I watch the trailer, and I'm like, that trailer was weird as hell. I had no idea what was going on in that trailer.
Weirder than the movie.
Well, we'll get into that part of it. But the trailer was very interesting, and I'm like, you know what? Trailer is interesting. Got Willem Dafoe. The director, I like Bad Lieutenant. Probably is most famous and
Abel
most notable
Ferrara,
from
yeah.
Abel Ferrara. We'll get into him a little bit, but aside
Massive
from
genre
that,
shift.
yeah, definitely. But aside from that, really, I just decided to pick it mostly based on Willem Dafoe and knowing that okay, this looks relatively interesting. And nobody watched it. It garnered $23,000 at the box office. It was mostly released on streaming. Came out in 2020. Wasn't released until 2021. Obviously, very little bit of actors in this movie. There are not many characters throughout the entire
There's only
thing.
like what, 2 or 3?
I'm
speaking
sure the
roles?
budget, I couldn't find a budget anywhere online, but I'm sure it was very small. Willem Dafoe probably got paid the most out of this, but also Willem Dafoe is good friends with Abel Ferrara, so who knows how that works. Regardless, those are the reasons, I guess, why I picked this movie, and yeah, I think we can just move on from there.
So you lied to me the last time
How
we
did I
did this
lie?
podcast
What did I say?
when you introduced the name of this movie. I
Siberia.
Asked, well,
All right,
I'm not talking about that.
Continue.
Well, what I'm talking about is that I asked you quite directly,
Mhm.
is this a movie where Willem Dafoe is getting weird? Because you made me watch Antichrist, and that was Willem Dafoe getting weird. And I asked you straight away. I asked you. I came to you and counseled.
Did I say no, though?
You did say no.
We're gonna have to run the tape back on that podcast because I
How
don't
about
know
I
if
will
I
bet
ever.
$10 right now.
I'll make that wager. I'll make
All
that
right.
wager.
Yeah, but so all right. So based on that bedrock of lies,
We
were
have
now.
Siberia. And make sure that you're watching Siberia. If for some reason you want to pause this, go ahead, watch the movie, come back. Make sure it's Siberia with Willem Dafoe and not Keanu Reeves, because there's a similar movie named Siberia with Keanu Reeves that came out right around the same time.
I think that movie would have been more comprehensible than this one.
It-
In all honesty,
Right.
and you don't eat anything when you watch this movie because I sat down, ate dinner while starting this movie, and I immediately regretted it. I felt queasy in certain
I want to
parts of the
know.
movie.
I want to know what you were eating.
I was eating a burger.
Oh, okay.
Hamburger?
Yeah, I don't know if that's the.
I don't know.
The
Is there a specific food to get into while watching this movie?
Maybe something
It
like
might have been worse
chips.
eating like spaghetti or
I'm
like
That's
sure.
like
anything sauce based. But anyway, that's beside the point. It turned my stomach to the point where I didn't finish my food. I put my
Well,
food.
what made your stomach turn? Because I didn't. This wasn't a gross movie. by any means.
let's start a little bit with the plot, or kind of, or lack thereof.
It was all over the fucking place.
Let's give up. You know what? I'm going to go with the plot
All right,
summary
I got this.
first.
So-
You got it right there. The premise.
So
Just read that
basically, the
part.
premise of the film is that Willem Dafoe plays a gentleman named Clint, not Eastwood. You know, I'm making that. That's a movie joke in case you didn't notice. But
Yeah, keep going.
he runs a bar in Siberia. He's basically in isolation. He had some strange life beforehand. They don't get into it enough to
Like-
really explain what exactly happened.
Mhm.
It's like troubled marriage.
Yeah,
stuff
he just
about
had
it,
a
like,
troubled life, so he kind of went out to isolate himself in Siberia. He's like, there's not a lot of people that speak English.
Mhm.
I suppose, I don't know what.
I think there are a
assume-
variety of different languages
Yeah,
being
it's
spoken.
it's mostly. It seems like mostly indigenous people. I don't know
Mhm.
what the indigenous groups to Siberia is
I
necessarily.
don't know if they name them specifically.
Yeah, they don't name them, but
anyways.
Willem Dafoe sure slanders them in the beginning of the movie. Did you know? Did you pick
In
up on
which part
in
are
the
you
opening
referring to?
monologue where he talks about how they were all drunks?
Oh,
And
well,
they would just try to sneak drinking. Like, what the fuck, man?
but I think that not to defend this viewpoint. I think that was, but that's him as a child explaining it, right? Like that's him. Like I think explaining it through his dad's eyes, like how he was told the situation. Regardless, I
It's
just
just a strange thing.
and the movie is very surreal. It is not a linear movie. It's not something that is you're going to sit back and watch and be like, okay, that was a story that I understand. It's something that must be interpreted. And how you interpret it, I guess, is up to you, and how much you think the movie merits that interpretation, or whatever interpretation you could come up with, is also obviously, up to your discretion.
I don't.
I thought it was going to be very difficult getting this movie because in the beginning I'm just like, all right, he's like you said, running a bar
Mm-hmm.
in isolation in Siberia, and he's talking to that one drunk guy who's like doing the gambling thing, that slot machine,
Yes.
and he loses, and then it cuts to Willem Dafoe getting attacked by a bear. I'm like,
I
is that supposed to be like the bar patron getting mad and attacking him? Is that how he viewed it? Like, what the hell just
I
happened?
hated that scene. The bear looked completely fake. That like when I saw that to begin with, I'm like, this movie might be rough.
Watching that, I'm
I
like, this is
was
going to be a weird Willem Dafoe vehicle.
Yeah, because there are certain parts, and I'll notice like just in general, I'll just say I have very mixed feelings about this movie, mixed to negative feelings about this movie.
Glad.
But you're glad. I hate this movie and I take it personally. Is what you said right there.
Absolutely.
Willem Dafoe should be brought up on criminal charges.
But when I saw that scene with the bear, I'm like, what was that, and what is that trying to portray? Because do any of you know? Are we stupid, or was that just a bad decision?
This movie firmly falls into a category that I'm noticing personally in like the last 10 or 15 years. Like, it was popular, like the most famous ones are movies like Mulholland Drive, Synecdoche, New York, where it's very cerebral, it's kind of like a thinking man's movie, sort of stuff like that. But in the last like 10 years, and I think I guess the credit could be owed to production companies like A24 who make a lot of like who push through a lot of like cerebral movies. And like even though they're horror movies, like they get a little through things like Midsummer, and where it's kind of like a lot is open to interpretation. There's a lot of things.
And I love when things are open up into interpretation.
Yeah, and there's a lot of just I don't want to call it shocking imagery, but kind of like unflinching, where they just show you like pretty nasty shit.
Yeah.
And this movie did it too. Like what is it? 5 minutes into the movie, like it's like a pregnant woman. She's pulling her shirt off.
I think it's more like 10
I was
minutes.
confused about that too. Like, okay, she doesn't want to take another drink. That's interesting. She pulls open her coat, and then Willem Dafoe goes like silent, walks over, starts like
is that
feeling
his
up the
child?
belly. That's what I thought.
That is the one. That's one positive thing I could say about this movie is like you can talk about it because it wants you to talk about it. Just I don't know if the conversations that you're going to get are going to be worth much in the end.
See, movies like this, I feel like it's not as groundbreaking as it was, I would say, a decade ago. Like, you showing me this kind of like, oh, this is a pregnant woman. She's naked on screen. This guy's kissing her titties. Like, doesn't that evoke something? Doesn't that make you feel something? No, it fucking doesn't. It's weird. My parents are home. Why the fuck am I watching this?
To be fair, I don't know where I'm going with this. I've completely forgot what I was going to say.
Great. It's
Willem Dafoe. He can do this stuff.
Okay.
And then like when the woman's giving birth, and I'm like, it's very visceral.
I feel like I do not care about the imagery whatsoever, but if it served a purpose, like if I felt like, oh, that's why they're showing this, or oh, this plays into the, but I'm just looking at it and I'm like, why? Just
There's
why?
no reason for this.
You're talking about when the woman's giving birth to that weird like hybrid creature.
Yeah.
In the basement. I was like, is this supposed to be the same woman? What the hell is this?
Yeah.
And that was after he went down in the basement and then had like a weird philosophical conversation with like a reflection of himself, which is I think like Willem Dafoe type of staple, like
it's just because it just made me feel like the Green Goblin.
I think
we attack his heart. I was waiting for Tobey Maguire to show up and just start kicking his ass in the basement.
To be fair, I like that scene only because I was like, okay, well this is just Willem Dafoe, doing his thing.
This is Dafoe.
Not that it served the purpose of the movie very well, because it just seems like a man. Well, how I interpreted this movie is just a man somehow, whether this is a fever dream, maybe is similarly. I don't know if you. Oh, I watched it with you. I'm thinking of ending things. I feel like it's a man going throughout his life just in a very surreal way. It's just showing a man's life shown in different ways.
Almost a psychotic break.
Yeah, so let's say he's in some kind of fever dream before he's about to die, similarly to I'm Thinking of Ending Things. The movie doesn't show us that because this movie's shit.
And now you spoiled it. No, I'm kidding.
But what I'm saying, well, spoilers, yes, please. That's obvious that we're into spoiler territory. Any kind of thing along these lines is going to be spoilers. But regardless to that, what I'm trying to say is that
what are you trying
this movie.
You've been saying that for 2 minutes. What are you trying to say, sir?
This movie has no purpose. Like, I feel like, okay, this is his life. He has some memories.
Yeah.
He has some things that have happened to him in the past that are, like, kind of traumatic, but I don't even know. It doesn't dive deep enough into those things, and it doesn't present them in a way that I think is good enough for me to care.
It doesn't. Yeah, like it's like the movie really wanted to be in depth, but it had nothing to say. Because
Exactly.
by
It
the
had-
end of the
it
film,
had nothing to say.
by the end of the film, I got it. Like when it's like he's walking through the field and there's kids running around.
Mhm.
I understood it. He's running with the kids.
Mhm.
That was a little bit of a jarring shot.
Are
But
you
I-
wait the one with like the music's going on
Yeah.
at the same time? I like that song. I didn't mind that scene
I
at all. I
understood
like
it
that scene.
because that's when it finally clicked for me. I'm like, he's going back to his childhood. He
Mhm.
saw his ex-wife, and he's kind of. It's almost like he's making peace with each part of it. Like he was out there obviously to isolate himself because he didn't want to deal with what was going on in his life. And this whole movie represents him just finally confronting what's going on in his life.
Can we talk about the cave scene
Which part?
when he goes down into the cave?
Yeah, no, that's okay. Well, that gets into it. Well, I was talking
No,
about
I know.
shocking imagery.
Yeah, that's why.
You know
I
what
wanted to-
movies can stop doing? Naked people.
Well,
Like
you don't like naked.
I'm not like I'm not gonna act like I'm clutching pearls or anything.
I think
here.
he's.
But like, oh my god, a heavy-set naked woman. This does not shock me. Why are you showing me this?
I felt similarly in another movie that we talked about one time, Nocturnal Animals.
Oh, the beginning
Oh.
scene, that art display.
Yeah,
But it's the same. It's kind of the same thing. Like, well, at least
but it's how you take it, right? Like if you, it's whether is the movie trying to show it as shocking or is this just something that's happening?
I think it's just supposed to be. Because I got the impression that his father died when he was really young, or younger, young enough to be a kid.
Definitely young enough. I
And
believe.
so I think that because that scene was very chaotic, there's people screaming, and he's obviously very taken aback. So I interpreted it as that was just him as a kid experiencing being in probably what was a cancer ward or something to that effect.
Mhm.
Because they talk about the doctor saying it's not getting better and stuff like that. So I'm gonna
Yes.
assume it's something like cancer. So it's just basically his father's dying in that sense, and then he's probably like 11 years old, so he's like, holy fuck, this is scary. People are crying out in pain. People are begging for the dark. Like, this is a traumatic experience at 11 years old. So that's what fucked him up. And also, as an aside note, that fishing trip his dad describes, like, didn't that sound like fun?
I did enjoy that scene. If I had to pick a
So-
scene that I liked
talking about
throughout
packing
that entire movie, I did enjoy
Lemonade,
that.
bologna sandwiches, fishing.
Do
It
you-
sounds like fun,
Do
man.
you think, because this is a question that I had in my head, do you think that scene would have benefited from imagery, or do you think, like, to go along with it, or do you think that just Defoe describing it, well, in the character of his father, him describing it was good enough for you? Like, did you like the fact that
I
it
like
went...
the description, but I mean, like, it's a movie. You can show it visually. I find if they change the setting like they did throughout the entire movie, like
Mhm.
you had Willem Dafoe in Siberia, then apparently you had him in the desert, and you had him in a field or like in a grassy area,
Mhm.
like doing that twirly thing, the ribbons around the fucking the pole.
Yeah, I don't know what the
Dancing
name of
with the
that
kids.
is, but yes.
I don't know what it's called either. I think what is it, parasol or something? I don't know.
I
See,
genuinely
but
don't
you
know.
literally, you could have said anything.
That-
You could have
yeah.
said...
It's a
No,
stick
I'll
with
believe
ribbons.
you.
I don't know.
Yeah. But, yeah,
just-
continue.
You know what I'm trying to get at. Like, it's a movie. Show it visually. You sprung for like all these different locations. Give me at least maybe like Willem Dafoe as his father, because they did have Willem Dafoe
On the boat or something, right?
exactly on a boat in a river describing it. Instead, they had him
Just sitting there.
sitting there in like a wife beater with glasses and like I think shaving cream on
Yeah.
too. Like it was like mid shave. I guess
And
it's supposed to be like him the night before talking to young young Clint.
And I think they used that shaving cream to try to differentiate Defoe from his father.
Yeah, because he was playing his father.
Because
So,
he's
like,
playing his own father. So, like, they're trying to differentiate. And I think it's weird because Defoe does do a slightly different accent for his father, like a way of
he
speaking.
really did sound different.
But then, towards the end, he stops talking that way and starts talking like Willem Dafoe again. I'm like, oh, why didn't you stay consistent to the way that you were talking?
he's not talking as Clint. He's
Prior
talking as
to-
Willem Dafoe.
Yeah, like, it just annoyed me a little bit. And I wish it was just, yeah, they had so many locations, so many settings, so many surreal things, but then they just have his father sitting there talking about the
I
situation.
think, I don't know.
Or was that a contrast do you think that they made intentionally?
Yes, I think the fact that they show as little as possible is 100% part of their overall message. Because of the fact that, and I give them credit, the transition, because there's basically two parts to this this movie.
Well, it feels like a dream.
No, but that's the point.
Yeah, exactly.
So the first, like I would say half of the movie, the shots are very jarring. Everything's very, like This movie does. It reminded me a lot of Lamb.
Yes.
That godforsaken movie.
I actually, cinematography wise, I definitely was reminded of Lamb, although this movie is much colder in terms of its environment.
Well, it's only like no, yeah, generally same area.
Yeah, but the different seasons. I mean, a different area. But you continue.
But this movie, it played a lot on wide shots and a lot on no dialogue. Lamb did
At
that
many
too.
times,
Like
yes.
there are like 10 minutes worth of scenes where it's either only Willem Dafoe like logically figuring things out, or he's just not speaking at all. And I think that's to build up the sense of isolation that he had. And then the second half of the movie feels much more dreamy, where the transitions
I
are
think
much
it's
more
even more than
fluid.
a half. I think the majority of
Probably
it
like
is
two
in that
thirds,
surreal.
yeah.
Yeah, easily.
But even so, I think these were very intentional decisions to where, and like let's be honest, dreams are not very linear,
No,
and
it's
they will
No,
get
no,
strange
absolutely.
in the sense that like you can envision all these things and you're in a cave. Like it's not always playing out visually as you remember it. People are just talking to you sometimes. Like people show up in your dreams and something different, complete talk about something completely different, and you understand it.
yeah.
Which reminded me a lot of like Willem Dafoe. He's very obviously in this cave with the cutest fucking dogs ever. I don't,
When
can
were
we
there
give it? Can
dogs?
we
Am
give it
I
up for the
missing?
dogs?
When were
The
there
group of
dogs?
sweat dog. Yeah, let's give it up for
Oh,
the
the
dogs.
dogs.
When
Yes,
he
yes,
heads
yes,
out
yes,
from the
yes,
bar.
yes.
Yeah,
Sorry,
can
sorry.
we just give it up for the
That
sweat
was
dogs
real
right
early
here?
on. Yes.
Yeah.
Ironically, just to put on that note, the second movie that came out in that calendar year with Willem Dafoe and Sled Dogs. So that's interesting as well.
What
There's
was
a
it?
movie called
Was it?
Togo, a
Oh
Disney
yeah,
movie
yeah.
where Willem Dafoe also with Sled
I
Dogs.
actually found out an interesting fact. Did you know several of those dogs were also in Togo?
The same dogs.
Yes.
That's wonderful.
Very interesting.
I did not know that. So they
Probably
were
the most
just.
interesting thing about this movie.
And I believe Willem Dafoe, if I remember correctly, I don't know if it was one of the dogs from the movie, but shortly after, because he said he was never an animal person, never a dog person, actually adopted a dog for
I
the
was gonna
first
say
time.
like he has to have adopted at least one of those dogs.
He did. I don't know if it was one of those dogs. I can't remember, but I watched a few interviews with him relating to this movie, and I believe that's something that he mentioned. So
Yeah, but
that's interesting enough, at least.
I reiterate with the fact that I think all these decisions were very intentional, and so the decision to not show anything, it's almost like the first third of the movie, you're like existing outside of him to where like
Hmm.
you're watching him live his daily life. He doesn't
Yeah.
fucking talk to anyone, which also highlights a pretty interesting thing that like a concept that I think a lot of people come to grips with. I feel like a lot of people have come to grips with it during
Hmm.
the pandemic to where like if you don't like if you're not don't have anybody close around you, you could really go days without really talking to anyone.
Yeah. No. Absolutely.
Like if you just go to work, you run a few errands and then you go home. Like yeah, you talk to people, but the reality is you really don't talk to anyone. You don't share your feelings or your thoughts with anyone. So I think that's what the first third of the movie was, and then now you're in his head. He's
Yeah.
confronting whatever the hell it is in this cave.
His own personal demons.
Yeah, exactly. And
And
this
then
is
it just
just
goes
him.
deeper and
Yeah,
deeper into that, and like I didn't necessarily need a narrative because obviously you have that dream-like element. You can feel that it's similar to a dream. You're inside the guy's head, but I just don't know if it, gives me all that I want in terms of something that is
give me what I
like,
want.
yeah, give me what I want out of the movie, right? Like, there's a reason why, I don't even know if the camera can see it right now, but I put Mulholland Drive there, and that I like certain surreal movies that have surrealist elements, but that also, give me something as far as a narrative. Just give me something to follow because at times I just felt like, okay, yeah, this guy's had memories before, he's had situations. Like, why should I care? Like, tell me why I should care about this guy as we're going through it. And I just don't think it does a well enough job of telling me why I should care about this guy's life.
I wouldn't even go that far, personally. Like
What
I
do you
don't
mean?
mind slice of life, but
Well,
just
it's not even about slice of life, but for any slice of life
I
thing, you need to make me care. Like, why do I care? Why do I care? Are you banking on the fact that it's Willem Dafoe and I like Willem Dafoe? Because if that's the case, that's the only reason I sat through the movie.
I don't know. I guess it's just because it's just touching on because the whole movie was just basically felt like to me is just touching on like running isolating yourself doesn't solve anything. a lot of times. Like, you may be away from your problems because you don't have to deal with them on a day-to-day basis, but they're still there. There's a cave, there's something beckoning towards you deep down. Whatever
Mhm.
problem you're not dealing with it's still there. It doesn't go away. Like, pushing it down does not make it go away. And I think that was the entire point of this movie. He ran all the way out to like the edges of the world. I
Mhm.
think they say that in the movie actually. Like, they make note that his like alter ego makes note of like coming all the way out to the edge of the earth
Mhm.
and to get away from his
Yeah.
problems.
Yeah. No, I don't disagree, and I think that that's like a perfectly valid interpretation of it. I just don't know if it gives me enough. You know
Oh
what I
no,
mean?
it doesn't.
Like
I didn't think so. That's just I interpreted the movie as that, but it didn't
so
do
what
anything.
about that? Like, what would you have wanted it to? Like if because it seems like you're all right with the kind of movie that it is, right? Like yes, like give me that. Like what were the main sticking points where you're like, okay, if they did this differently, maybe.
It's not even anything specific because I can't. Well, I mean, I think some of the imagery was just kind of went unexplained, and when it went unexplained, it became unnecessary. Stuff like, obviously, we mentioned the girl giving birth, him kissing the pregnant woman, him getting mauled by the bear. Like, there are these scenes where it's just like, what am I doing with this information?
Yeah, no, I
Like,
fully agree.
if you're not going to circle around to it or explain it, like, then you might as well just not included it. If you would cut those scenes, I'm not saying it would have saved the movie, but
Geez, it's already at 90 minutes. Like this is a relatively short movie, but it felt like it dragged on.
I,
At
I
least that's
won't
my
I won't
opinion.
lie to you. Last 10 minutes, I was fighting to stay awake.
Dude,
I
it
watched it on a Sunday after. You ever get that Sunday afternoon sleep where you're just like, your
I don't know.
body knows
How
it's.
did you feel about the pace, Steve?
Yeah,
I broke it up, man, because like after an hour, I was like sleeping, and I was like, even after all those fucking wacky scenes,
And dude, it's only 90 minutes. That's the crazy
yeah,
part. Like,
only 90 minutes. I was just like, how the fuck am I falling asleep right now? I just saw like him. I saw Clint drive past or sled past. Excuse me,
there
sled
you
past.
go.
Fucking. What was it? The death camp.
That's another
Oh
thing
my
that's not
god.
explained.
I was
Shown
like,
and
what
not
is that?
explained.
I do not.
Is that just a
That
location? Is that him
imagery
like
was
thinking of
like.
like what that place was?
I wish that imagery was in a better movie because I was like, this is raw.
That
This
was
is
it. That was
visceral.
very visceral, and I thought they were going to bring something up like, oh wow, maybe he had some experience in the military, and this is calling back to it. No,
The way I think of it now,
Could
since
you
like
interpret it?
we're
Because I
explaining,
could not
like,
interpret that.
all right, so maybe that was an actual location and maybe it was abandoned, but as he was sledding by, maybe he knew some history about it, and as he was sledding by, he was thinking of it, and that's what is shown to us
But how the hell does that relate
on
to
screen.
his life and or
it
the
doesn't.
greater themes of the movie?
I
You know
guess
what I
maybe
mean?
it's just like all this shit that he's going
And
through, all the
also,
scenes that play out in his head, like personal demons with I guess whatever happened to his father, maybe dying of cancer,
Something related, yeah,
a
health
failed
related for
marriage,
sure.
him traveling the world doing medical stuff.
And he definitely cheated on his wife, right? Is
I
that
did
how
pick
we
up on that. See,
interpreted?
that's how
oh
I
yeah,
That's
saw
how
it.
we interpret it.
yeah, we could get
Him
it.
just have,
Can we get into this movie? This movie really wanted Willem Dafoe to fuck.
dude. Him and the director are friends.
He
Defoe went to the director and was like, "Bro, write me a script where I can get some tang." Like, come
he
on.
fucking he fucks like 4 people in this movie, and the movie shows most of it
I
in a 90-minute movie.
I was surprised by that. I didn't think I would be
Fucking
seeing
the
that.
last scene, like that, the last quote unquote. It's like, but I will commend the movie. They did
Hmm.
a great because I always commended The Sopranos for doing this, to
Hmm.
where they could kind of capture the nonsensicalness of dreams. Like, people you're with just change and you don't even realize,
Oh
Absolutely.
yeah,
and you just like how it became. I guess his mom,
Yeah, that
and then
was.
like he's just like there's no shock, there's no hey, what just happened. It's more just like,
He does have sex with his mom, doesn't he?
can we get a drop on that? Can we
Yeah, can
record
we?
that?
Yeah, somebody clip that. That is. But all right. Let me just look through what else I have here. Because did was anybody able to interpretate why he kept looking, or I think he mentioned it twice, the black arts or the dark arts or something along those
that might have been a
lines?
metaphor for something. That's the only foreseeable thing that I saw of it.
I didn't understand what he was trying to get at
Because
with
like,
the dark
well, the
arts
first
or
time I
the
heard it, I'm
black
like, maybe
arts,
that's
whatever
why
it was.
everything's so like out of sequence. Maybe he died and he's in hell, and this is just his price for using black arts. But it's just like, yeah, no,
Maybe.
they never really like. There's
It
no
might be
clear cut
atonement
explanation.
for his sins, or I guess quote unquote sins.
If you interpret it as he's going to hell as a result of this, but I don't know if that's how, because I feel like they could have shown that, especially in this kind of a movie where they're
This movie did open my eyes to something. because when he's in the
Willem
desert,
Dafoe's ass
that
cheeks.
well that, and I saw the infamous Shuang that was too big for
Oh, did they show his
Antichrist.
dick?
Oh
I
yeah,
don't
oh
remember
you see it
that.
big time in that last sex scene. You see a shadow of it. It's
Oh, okay.
fucking sitting there like an arm. But that guru in the I don't know what you would call it, because this is a scene that doesn't really circle back to anything when he's out in the desert and he's in with that little nomad camp.
When
And
that like the hospital scene.
yeah,
Okay,
and
yeah.
that like that guru guy is speaking. He says, "Beware those who seek sleep at the night and don't find it." It reminded me a lot of you, Steve, because just about every movie we've reviewed, and you just mentioned it now, you always watch it in the middle of the goddamn night. And now this movie has told me to completely avoid people like you.
That's good. Yes, avoid me entirely.
You're taking lessons from this movie?
Oh yeah, yeah. I'm a
bad omen.
changed man.
I am a bad omen. Listen to Willem Dafoe. He knows. He knows all.
You're gonna,
yeah.
you're like the kid in the Sixth Sense movie. You see people that don't know are dead.
I see dead careers.
Oh, hey, wow. Wow. Well,
All
Dafoe
right.
acted his heart out in Spider-Man. You say the career is dead. You said it's a wrap.
Make sure you
No,
pull in a
I
little
don't
bit.
want to be associated
But,
with this fucking thing.
No, hold together for warmth. It's cold in here.
It is a little cold.
How are
But,
you wearing a t-shirt?
I'm just, I'm built different. I. Anyway, I had to. You know what? I did like just prior to Defoe dancing, like with what is this song? I wrote it as the Runaway song. I don't know if the name of the song is Runaway or. I like that song, and I like because what is it? The Guru, or is it somebody else that comes in and is like, "You're human. Fuck up, dance, shake your ass."
I paid attention to the credits because maybe like the credits will give me like maybe like some clue as to what was going on, or like demons, cave demons. I'm like, so those were demons.
Yeah,
those naked women were demons, or those naked people were demons.
I looked at the credits as well. I'm like, what? Oh, that's what that was supposed to be? Is that what that was supposed to be?
I figured the guy that was like trying to impart some like sage wisdom onto Willem Dafoe when he's back in the basement, when they make the second mention for the black arts. Yes. I think he was nicknamed the Magician.
That's the guy. That's the guy who's like, "You're human. Fuck up, dance, shake your ass." And I'm like, where?
It's like, dude, be you, man.
Yeah, be you. And I was like, I got like that scene alone. I'm like, if I just saw some weird short film with that, and I'm like, okay, that's something that I can buy.
Honestly, now that I think about it, I think that's where it really clicked for me. To where I guess he spent his whole life trying to search for higher purpose, and he ended up hurting some people, like not being as close to his family, cheating on his wife, and ending all the way out in fucking Siberia, I guess to seek purpose for his life, which also is him searching for the dark arts. He's searching for the purpose in his life. And the fact is, they're like, you could have just lived your own fucking life anyway, and it would have been fine. You don't always need to seek a higher purpose. Some life can just be enough sometimes. I think that might be the higher message of this movie.
Yeah, I think that definitely is something that it's going for. It's just it struggles to get to that point. You know what I mean? Like,
oh yeah, 100%.
Because the fact that and I guess it is a movie that you're gonna have to sit around and talk about, because I feel like I definitely have gained a little bit more from this conversation.
Yeah, I do feel better talking hearing most of you guys, because like I didn't have any input besides like I didn't like this movie. And
Steve's all I know is that I hated it.
Like I already had a fucking what did I rate it? I already had like a number set in my head, but now that we talked about it, I think.
Well, we'll get to the ratings in a little bit. I want to keep the suspense for that.
No. I'm jumping ahead of myself, but
no, you're good.
I'm just piggybacking off of what you said. I do, and I guess I understand the movie a little bit better after discussing it.
Yes, but then also after we have this discussion, right? I think it would be interesting, like, not that I'm necessarily going to do this, but to watch the movie again at some point and see if, like, is it actually like?
I don't want to watch it again.
No, I really don't. And this movie really wants to be the one. Oh, you're going to watch it 4 or 5 times to really get it. I barely wanted to watch it once. How about that?
There are Mulholland Drive. Honestly, that is one of the only movies in my life where I put it on, and as soon as I was done, I was like, I want to put it in again. It does not happen often for me, but I genuinely was like, I just want to put that in again because there was so much to take in, and I was interested in it. Like, it just does a lot of what this movie does, but a hell of a lot better. Not in terms of story, but in the way that it presents itself. David Lynch, the director of Blue Velvet, as well, many other Eraserhead to just name a couple of them.
I'm told that one's a fucking cerebral one.
Ridiculously surreal, ridiculously
I keep seeing a picture of like a dude with a whacked out fucking
Yes.
tall head.
That's the only thing I know about
I'm
that
like
movie.
HBO Max. I'm like, what kind of movie is this?
No, I watched
Some guy's Twitter profile, you know.
I watched the first 20 minutes and realized that, like, okay, this could be a good movie, but I am not in the mood for it right now.
Too high for it.
No, we'll talk about that later. But it just wasn't for me on that day. But regardless, David Lynch is somebody who can actually, at least most of the time, with most of his movies, at least from what I've seen, can pull off surreal. In this case, Abel Ferrara is grasping at strings. And I feel like, compared to Bad Lieutenant, which was, I felt like and I don't know, have any of you guys seen Bad Lieutenant? Harvey Keitel.
Bits and pieces.
Well, it is
Wasn't there one with Nick Cage?
It is
no,
that's the remake.
There's a sequel. It's
Yes.
set in New Orleans.
Yeah, that's a whole different movie, and we could talk about that one
I was
day.
on the right track.
But no, no.
Is that a movie you woke up in the middle of the night and started watching?
That was a movie I heard about while trying to fall asleep listening to YouTube videos. It was like I was like half awake, half fucking asleep.
So I think we just need.
I
think we just need to do this podcast whenever Steve is half asleep. That's when he's at his peak level of movie watching.
That's the peak. But as far as like it comes with Bad Lieutenant, I'm obviously not giving a review about that movie right now. But that movie does something that this movie absolutely does not do, which is like tell a compelling story and make me care about the character of Harvey Keitel and actually make me interested. But it is not maybe there's like bits and pieces that might be surreal and that like kind of go out of, but most of the time it's a very grounded movie and wants you to like just feel the energy of New York and of this cop who is just the biggest piece of shit in the world.
Just a corrupt cop.
The biggest corrupt cop. He is a freaking drug addict. It is a mess, and it's a solid movie. I don't love it, but it's a solid movie. And he also did King of New York. I've never seen that one. That's
Christopher Walken.
I'm curious to see it. I just haven't.
I know it was very popular for its time.
It was
because it's referenced a lot.
Yeah, so I hadn't known much of his other work aside from Bad Lieutenant, but I'm like, Willem Dafoe, this guy. Let's see what can happen. But I just don't think it ends up being exactly what it wants it to be. And branching off of what you said before, like when I mentioned like watching it again, I planned on watching it again today because I watched it like 2 weeks ago and I'm like, I want to refresh myself a little bit. But then I kept thinking about it. I'm like, there's no goddamn way that I'm watching that thing again. Like I kept going back to it. I'm like, I don't want to do it. Yeah. I have my notes. I'll remember. I'm good. Like having this conversation just jogged my memory of so much of it. I did not need to watch it again. And the fact that like I felt that way, I think says something, right? It says that, plenty of movies I want to watch again. And I usually am eager to like, hey, I'll go ask my girlfriend, say, hey, you want to watch this movie? Just get different people, try to find different people to watch the movie with me. This one, definitely not one of those movies.
I think, it's a movie that really thought it was going to break ground and be like something like Midsummer or something that's going to get the people talking, get the people thinking.
Yeah,
and at first I thought...
it got us to do some thinking.
Well, but you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Like, it wanted to light the movie fan pages ablaze with people talking about it, get Reddit, talking about this thing. And at first I thought it was supposed to be that, and it was the pandemic that kind of screwed it up because it was supposed to come out during 2020.
Yes.
I realized it was the same thing would have happened. Because at first I wasn't sure whether or not this movie had the merit. Because we talk about obscure movies and movies that just kind of really didn't get the traction. And we're debating why. That's the whole point of the show. Yeah. So I thought maybe 2021, 2020 was a little too early, but now I understand perfectly.
No, I think this falls perfectly in the category because I don't think within the next year or two this is going to pick up much traction as far as like people. I even looked up a few reviews online because I'm like, what do people think of this? Like I've looked at the Rotten Tomatoes score; it's like a 62%. The Metacritic score, I think, is in like the 40s.
And I was worried people were going to say this is the new cerebral classic.
And there are a couple articles, really? I think one from The Guardian, I believe, that goes into how
what are those bricks now? That's what I want to know.
Well, either way, they get into it a little bit about how much they like the film, but then most of the reviews are either mixed or negative, and that's most of the way that I feel. And I watched a guy, one of the guys just on YouTube, who the highest number of views on one of the reviews of this movie is like 1,000 views. So even nobody's searching out for reviews for this movie either. And none of like the top movie, reviewers on YouTube are talking about this movie.
And here we are. breakout hit.
Breakout hit. So if you one day this movie will get famous for some weird reason, and
Willem Dafoe does something heinous.
yeah, maybe like
no, it's like what Willem Dafoe's that sort of guy. Like I don't.
You find out they were killing dogs off set or
No,
something.
no,
Some
no.
weird story
See,
comes
you would
off.
think that. You would always think because it's always the people you don't suspect. It's always seemingly the
Mhm.
very down to earth, friendly people who are like these monsters behind the curtain. And
Bill
Willem
Cosby.
Dafoe, I think he's just so outwardly creepy that like it can't be.
Yeah.
Like you wouldn't get away with being a creep if you already seem like a creep. You can only be down to earth.
Yeah. No, I fully agree with that. One line, so I just have one other thing. I have a couple things in my notes here that I wanted to bring up. I just love this line. There was probably the one line that I actually liked in the movie. There weren't actually many lines, but my therapist says you're selfish. You need a new therapist. I love I'm like
I wish I could tell people that in my life.
yeah, like hey, you need a new therapist. That just showed me because like I couldn't get invested in the relationship between him and his wife because I'm like I don't give a shit because
yeah that clocked in
Because it
around
just-
like the final 20 minutes in the movie. And I'm like I'm gone. I don't care anymore.
No,
I'm sorry.
I don't care. And then it's just like, but then
Do
that,
they even
that
like
line
mention his
made
wife's
me-
name?
No,
No.
his wife has a name according to the cast list, but it's never mentioned.
Why wouldn't that?
Never
see,
mentioned
that doesn't make
himself.
any sense. That doesn't make any sense.
I thought his kid was a girl too, but apparently it was his son.
Oh,
It was
yeah,
a son,
yeah,
but
son.
it's played by a little girl, the director's daughter, because.
Well, now that I think about it, maybe that's what the fucking bullshit with the pregnant woman and then the woman giving birth to his halfling is how maybe it's his regret because he never got close to his son. So
But is this movie worth dissecting as much
no,
as we are?
I
Right?
mean we got this fucking
No,
far.
yeah,
Let's
you're right.
dissect it. Let's talk about all of it. Why
Fair
not?
enough.
We're the only people talking about it.
You're
So
right.
we might as well. Let's scream into the void for it. Give it its fair shot. That's the point of this show.
All right, great. I gotcha. What about the fish speaking Russian at the end of the movie? Let's talk.
That thing was speaking Russian. I thought it was just still
I had-
alive.
In the
and,
I had the
like,
subtitles
You know what?
on. It said
Now that I think
speaking
about it,
Russian.
I was asleep. I was because there's a couple of scenes at the end that have been mentioned that I don't remember, and I'm like, yep, I was asleep.
You figured like the movie would have had automatic subtitles whenever somebody's like speaking a different language, but for me it didn't. And I didn't know how to put the subtitles on.
I put the subtitles on. I had the Blu-ray of it because it was only $2 more than renting it. So I'm like, screw it. Why not
Well,
get the
did it through
Blu-ray?
Apple TV.
Yeah, all right, yeah. So, but mine was like, all right, so it'll
I
come
was
in
able to get
Amazon.
the subtitles, Steve. What's wrong with
Ooh.
your television?
A lot.
All right.
Much like my life.
If we ever make money on this, we'll donate it to get
We'll
Steven
get
TV.
Steve a new TV.
Yeah,
That's
there
it,
we go.
people. Get the Patreon going.
64
Get
inches, please.
Steve a
Big TV.
Get Steve a TV. But yeah, there was a fish speaking Russian. I think it was Russian in the subtitles, and though they don't. It just says
Throw the accent.
it just says fish speaking Russian. It's not like it translates it for you or anything. And there's a fish there, and I didn't understand that scene. It maybe if someone wants to interpret that in the comments for me, please do.
Didn't interpret anything for me. It just between that and the soldier scene, it just because I watched it on Sunday. And just anything involving Russians now just feels extremely topical.
Yeah, it did.
'Cause-
It definitely,
Especially with
yeah.
that prison scene where they're killing people, and I'm like,
This ain't.
I don't like this scene anymore.
And then the weird death metal ending. Do you like? They just.
That's actually what woke me up.
Yeah.
I fucking definitely. I was like,
I
oh
love it.
shit! All right, I'm
Like
awake.
why? I don't know why they used that choice of music in the end.
That I don't get. can't.
I don't know. Well, you were asleep, so I don't know. But no, seriously, they just blast some like heavy metal towards the end of the thing and towards the end of the movie, and I don't know why. And I feel like
Why not? Is what I say.
because I feel like another movie that it just has random death metal that you wouldn't think like why are they playing death metal right now would be Funny Games, which is a movie that I like a lot.
I've never seen it.
Well, watch Funny Games. We'll watch it together. I'm gonna make you watch it, not for the podcast because it's a pretty popular thing.
You're on a fucking
But,
streak with movies you make me watch.
Hey, this one-
Martyrs,
this-
Antichrist, Buffalo
Hey.
66 was really good.
All right, so you got one out of it, if nothing else. But all right, I just want to mention a couple things from because I watched.
Did you hear that, Steve? Did you hear that teacher voice? Before I let you guys go, let me mention a couple of things. We got a test next Tuesday, so make sure you're studying your notes, people.
I don't like that. Why do you have to remind me of school?
I'm sorry, this is my
I'm
life.
glad I left that part of me behind.
I'm sorry. Well,
You should be.
Willem Dafoe did a couple interviews regarding this movie, and I searched.
Did he now?
I seeked them out because, like,
I would
who's seeking
love
that
to hear
out?
him explain
Well, that's-
like this movie.
Honestly, but isn't it? This this is the point of the podcast. Like, let's just
Yeah.
nobody else talked about it. Just there's something that touches me so deeply about these sort of things.
Mhm.
Like, have you ever found like old ads of something from when you were a kid, old commercials? There's a big market for it on YouTube where you just like somebody expected this to be something big and it never
Yeah.
was. So
Yeah.
I don't know. I find these things fascinating. So do tell.
Yeah, well, it's nothing that groundbreaking, but Willem Dafoe just says like some things that are confirmed like by our interpretations. He's like, it's a road movie of a guy trying to search for himself. So that's the way that Dafoe described it. He said there's dream language and dream logic, and Willem Dafoe argues that because it's supposed to be looked at as a dream, or just in general, Defoe believes it not to be very pretentious. He does not think it's pretentious.
That is a shame, Mr. Defoe, because this was the most pretentious fucking thing I've watched in a long time.
That's his argument. All right, so that's I wanted to give.
I'm sorry, I just.
Yeah, and I think I've said everything for the most part that I wanted to say.
All right,
about
so
this.
you guys want to throw out ratings?
Yeah, let's start out some
Steve,
ratings.
you could go first.
In the beginning, I was gonna give it like before, like just talking about it.
Mm-hmm.
I was gonna give it a 1 because I did not. For the most part,
just
I didn't.
Dead
enjoy
air
it.
to you. You might as well have the TV on TV static.
Maybe a 2 just for Willem Dafoe being in the movie. But upon further reflection, I'll
8
give
out
it.
of 10. Wow! Oh shit!
That changed everything.
I'll give it a 3.
Okay.
3 out of 10.
I thought you might have gone a 4, but all right. That's
I was thinking
fair
about 4, but no, not enough there. If I have to rewatch it, in order to get it, which I really don't want to do,
just to and you don't get anything out of it the first time. You know what I mean? Like, I guess you do get something out of it the first time, but you know.
Oh, and my favorite scene by far would have to be when he's coming back to the bar.
Oh yeah, and it just burned down.
It's just fucking gone.
Yeah, it's just
ruins. I'm like, I wonder how the hell that happened. Did he leave a candle on or something?
I don't. Who is it trying to say that his life is crumbling? There was
it sounds like life was well on its way. If I'm to believe anything, part of
is his solitude finally broken down? Is he gonna have to move on?
I guess that might really be it.
No, and I think that's why having some of this conversation definitely does help, because things that I'm unsure of are like, okay, well, you thought that too, so it's probably what they were trying to get at, and having things be up to your interpretation is important in movies, right? You don't want the movie just to be like, entirely exposition. But I don't know if the movie made me care enough about the character or about what it was trying to say, because I don't like. We all talked about like what it was trying to say, but I feel like it needed to have a stronger hone in on its themes, and that's just my opinion. I don't think it does that well enough. There's imagery that is unnecessary that goes on throughout most of the movie, and not that I don't have anything against seeing boobs in a movie or anything along those lines, but like when I'm like, well, what purpose is it serving? And I'm mainly talking about.
I need to know why the titties are here. I need to know.
I would just prefer not to see a movie where like a guy stumbles upon a woman giving birth to a big monster in the basement.
I wouldn't mind that if it, if they did.
I would
something
like an
with
explanation of it. Did Clint find how to do black arts and this the cause of it? Like, what is this?
And
what
are
we
the
suddenly
black
been
arts?
a part of VHS?
And what are the black arts? But
that's a good. I like those films. It's freaky, man. But
I don't like to mention those movies.
My rating, I'll just go. I think I've said everything that I need to say about this. 5 out of 10. 5 out of 10. I don't hate it. I don't like it. I think it's right in the middle. It's somewhere between a 5 and a 6, but I'll go 5.
I think
fucking awful.
I think a 5 is just generous.
5. No, to me, I'm like, okay, I can see, like, if I watched it again, I wouldn't want to kill myself. So that's where I'm gonna take.
How often do movies push you to the brink of suicide?
Have you ever seen Jersey Shore Shark Attack?
I think I would have rather watched that than this movie.
No, you wouldn't. Trust me, you wouldn't. All right, your rating over there?
This movie
10 out of 10.
That would have been funny.
I was lying the entire time.
That's what we did to Steve when we reviewed Priest. Me and you shredded it for an hour, and then like 5 months later, Steve's like, I kind of like that movie.
I do like that movie.
Poor Steve fucking cried himself to sleep that night. So I nothing like it.
Those bastards, I'll show them. I'll scrounge up enough money. I'll make a priest too.
Get Paul Bettany on the phone, motherfucker. That was it.
We're talking about two movies now that nobody has seen: Priest and Siberia here.
Paul Bettany.
Paul Bettany.
Yeah, no, this movie's a 4 out of 10 for me.
Right.
Because it's not even that there was anything like I said, I like to think I interpreted it the way it was supposed to be interpreted. It wasn't a bad idea. The kind of the themes it was talking about weren't bad. I am a big fan of, because in shows I liked Sopranos did it really well. BoJack Horseman did it really well too. I'm talking about TV, but those are two examples I can think of where they used dreamlike language, I guess dream language, and just the nonsensicalness of dreams to drive home plot points. And I like that. I think that's honestly something that happens a lot to people in real life. Like, we're easily able to distract ourselves with what's going on in real life, that sometimes your subconscious will actually take like a fucking 2x4 to your head and just say, hey, you got to think about this shit. You have to remember what's going on.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think when done well, I think it's amazing. I'm Thinking of Ending Things is one of my favorite movies on that basis.
I love that movie.
But this movie, like, it just could not keep me engaged. I couldn't get myself really invested about what was going on. It meandered a lot. The first third of the movie,
and for a 90-minute movie, that's inexcusable.
It just, the fact that, I'm not saying my hand has to be held. I like movies that don't do that, but there is also another end to the spectrum of this that this movie falls under, where I can't fucking interpret everything.
And especially, and it's not even just about not having to interpret everything. It's just like some things are just like, why did that scene happen with the men getting killed? I don't know, and I don't think I'm getting an explanation.
And I'm like, and it's not even a bad thing, because in the end now I understand. Like, we talked about why it's very quiet. There's no dialogue, and then the second half of the movie is so much more dialogue. I get why.
Yeah.
But in the moment, I couldn't get myself engaged on that basis, and it wasn't until like the last 20 minutes of the movie when the plot finally clicked for me that the things I appreciated about it I could do. So on that basis, like, I wouldn't recommend it. Not really.
Yeah, I would struggle to recommend this movie. I would say if you like Willem Dafoe, like if you really like Willem Dafoe, it's not something horrible to watch. Like, because you can watch. If this was anybody but Willem Dafoe, this would be much worse.
I think a problem this movie has is that with plots like these, I'm thinking of movies like Nocturnal Animals, I'm thinking of Ending Things, to where obviously there's the plot as a whole is a greater representation of something else, but you don't know what it is. So you're engaged in this movie trying to figure out what it means.
Mm-hmm.
That's the whole point of the movie, you know.
But then when what it means comes out to like, oh, that's what it
exactly
is. Like, yeah.
Exactly. Like, I'm thinking of it, the whole thing is just his final, like, his psychotic break before he ends his life. What was the other movie? Nocturnal Animals.
I'm Thinking of Anything.
Nocturnal Animals. The whole thing is really just
spoiler for Nocturnal Animals.
It's Jake Gyllenhaal sort of coming to terms with the destruction of this relationship he was in, and all these things, because you want to piece that together. With this movie, it's like, for one thing, I couldn't really piece it together because I didn't have enough information, and then when I had enough information, it wasn't that satisfying.
Yeah, exactly.
And on that basis, like, okay, you could have done something great, but you didn't. So it's 4 out of 10.
Yeah, no, I pretty much same sentiment. I just think, for me personally, 5 out of 10. But everybody interprets, their rating system a little bit different.
3 out of 10 would not recommend it. Would not watch it again.
Steve said, "I want this shit. The copies of this movie, like the fucking ET game from the 80s. I want it buried in a field.
Burn it if you can.
Steve's like, give me that fucking CD right now. I'll fucking break it.
If someone was willing to pay me, like, I don't know, say $1,000 to watch it again, I'll probably watch it again.
That's actually shit. I would rewatch it for like a crisp $20 bill. I don't know what the hell you got.
Genuinely, if someone came up to me and was like, "Hey, do you want to watch this with me?" I'd be like,
I'm watching it to make fun of it.
Yeah, I'd watch it to be like,
laugh at the fat pregnant lady.
Statement rescinded. I would definitely get drunk and watch this.
Do you want to get drunk? I say you go on some hallucinogens and watch this movie.
No, absolutely fucking not.
That would just get boring, and you would probably just trip out over the bear, and then
you'd end up in the corner of your closet,
You wouldn't be able to get past the Siberia part, because then you're like, "There's bears in my basement," and then I'm watching it in the basement, and then my dog comes down, and I panic.
Yeah,
it's not an endorsement of hallucinogens or Siberia.
Any
by Abel Ferrara.
any anything else we have to say about
Any
this?
final thoughts?
Anything about this?
Please God, don't let there be a sequel.
This isn't the kind of movie that gets a sequel.
These sort of movies, I did not feel a cinematic universe getting set up.
Yeah, no, the next movie is
Robert Downey Jr. did not walk out in the end credits and said, "Yeah, I think I'm moving to Siberia."
Not quite. No, I think I got nothing else to say. 5 out of 10. Book it. Yeah. So, up to you guys whether you would like to continue this and talk about something else, either on the podcast form or if you would just like to keep it on the.
I think we could just kind of call it a wrap here for people that have had quite enough of how we sound and just wanted to fucking know how Siberia is as a movie. So we'll sign off to those fine people.
Actually, we have a movie recommendation for.
I know. Look at this.
Let's do
We're
that.
moving on to dessert. We haven't even finished dinner. What the hell is wrong with us?
Remember, first episode. Well, first episode in the new setup.
Yeah.
So
we're a little excited.
Is it Steve's turn?
Yes, it is. In fact, Steve's turn.
So this is kind of like a personal feel-good movie of mine. I don't know if either of you have seen it.
Seeking a Friend for the End of the World.
Watch it again. Rated higher.
I said the same thing for Seeking a Friend for the End of the World too, didn't I? Wow. That is a good movie. I do like that movie.
And we fucking hated it like all the other movies.
I didn't hate it. I think I gave it a 6.
You went,
no, I think I gave it a 5 too.
I don't know, but you went hard for a fucking hour on it.
You know what? I gave it the same score as this movie, so that tells you what I think about both of these movies.
Wow, you put it on even footing with Siberia? That's terrible.
Here we are. All right, give your goddamn recommendation.
All right, so my recommendation is Stranger Than Fiction. It stars Will Ferrell and Dustin Hoffman.
I remember this movie. I was a kid, but I remember this movie existing. So this is
I remember it existing. Yes.
All right. Here's the thing: like everybody I've ever talked to, say for maybe like 1 or 2 people who I've made watch it, namely my mom and my sister.
Forced them a gun, but yeah, I like everything the same thing there.
I mentioned the movie to them after I saw it on TV, and they're like, "I've never heard of that movie before." And I'm like, "Really? You've never heard of it?" Like you said, I remember seeing the trailer.
Steve starts furiously taking notes.
I've seen like the poster, but that's all that I.
I remember it was the giant exclamation point falling on him. I remember seeing it at the Mellow Mall.
Maybe that's why.
Good times.
Definitely.
Good times.
But without giving away too much plot, fucking.
And just tell us what it's about. Just
Will Ferrell's main character, I forget his name.
It's a fucking forgettable movie, right up our alley.
He eventually starts hearing his life being narrated. And
I have seen the trailer to this. Not the movie, but the trailer.
He goes in search of, like, I don't know, anybody who can help him, like authors, psychiatrists.
I've always thought the plot to this was interesting. I guess not interesting enough to watch it on my own yet, but, I have a lot of movies on my watch list.
All right.
All right. I'm excited.
Stranger Than Fiction
is definitely...
That'll be
something.
The vehicle for next week, so... Absolutely. We thank you for listening.
Listening.
We're making up words now. Oh yeah. But yeah, this is we're into a new foray of things. We're doing things a bit differently, so you can expect this in 2 weeks when we come back with our review for Steve Stranger Than Fiction. But for now, so the overall consensus was 4 out of 10 for Siberia.
That's what it'll come out
4 out of 10.
4 out of 10 from the group. Yeah.
All right, so.
That's math, right?
You do with that review as you will. So until next time, we don't have an outro.
Until next time, we don't have an outro. Yes.
Yeah,
see you guys later. Have a wonderful weekend. Wonderful weekend. Wonderful weekend.